Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. This is 5x5 and I'm Simo. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the subscribe button. I see you. I will come for you. I will write a strongly worded letter. So click subscribe. Anyhow, we're back talking about Westworld. Episode 4 of Westworld premiered last night. A lot happened in this episode. The creators, the writers, are really not dragging it out the way they did in previous seasons. They're kind of really bringing everything fast and furious. And it's good. The pace is much more intense. A lot more reveals a lot sooner. No more slow burn, or at least it doesn't seem that way. So I'm just going to get into it. Right away, the man in the black cap is back. That's it. William is back. So we see him in the opening scene. We last saw him at the end of season 2 enjoying his crazy simulation and simulated life. And so he's back now. His daughter is appearing to him regularly. It's driving him crazy. He's trying to work through all of his guilt and his memories. Ultimately, he's trying to work through his humanity. Is he real or not? Like, how much of him is, I don't know, what makes somebody real? Person, right? So he's trying to work all that out. This is really interesting as a character arc for him now, though, because if you remember in episodes 1 and 2, he was all about trying to figure out what the maze in the park was all about and what that meant for the people that were following it. And he was disappointed to find out from Ford that the maze was not meant for him. It was meant for the hosts as a way of awakening their sentience, right? Their consciousness. So this is really interesting because now, well, William is long gone. The only thing left of him is this simulated version of William. And he himself is a host as well. An unsuccessful, crazy one, but he's still a host. So technically, though, the maze is now for him also. So in a way, you could argue that he is now traveling the maze. We pick up with William, he's struggling, and Charlotte comes to him, and she's trying to recruit him. She thinks, you know what, hey, I need help. I've got an aggressive attempted takeover happening from some guy named Surak, and I need your help to save your company, your family's company. What do you think, William? Are you interested? So William's like, hey, I thought you were better at this. You shouldn't need me, but you do, so I guess I'll help you. So that's kind of where they're at. They form an alliance. So she's bringing him out to help save Delos. Meanwhile, Bernard and Stubbs are plotting to intercept Dolores before she gets a chance to kidnap Dempsey. They're trying to stop her before she replaces Dempsey, or at least they think she's going to replace Dempsey. Back with Dolores. Dolores is teaching Caleb about rich people. She's trying to teach him about human tribalism because Caleb doesn't know anything about Dolores' nature at this point. He just knows that she's some kind of revolutionary fighting against a system that he's been trapped by his whole life, right? He doesn't know that she's actually an android trying to overthrow humanity. That's a little bit different. Maybe they're not that different. I'll have to give that some thought. Anyhow, Caleb is not aware of any of that, so he's taking lessons very easily from Dolores. Dolores has pointed out that humans are very tribal. In tribal anthropology, we know that humans would wear different plumages and stuff, and that helped them distinguish themselves from each other in different tribes, right? What she very simply and succinctly points out is that rich people wear rich clothes as a form of their plumage because humans are very tribal, and it helps rich people distinguish themselves from poor people and with other rich people, which is a really harsh but accurate assessment, also very fascinating. But the theme of humans being tribal and the hosts seeing humans as being a tribalistic creature comes up later in the episode 2 in a few points. They keep referring to humans as just being tribal savages. It's interesting and it's hard to argue with. Meanwhile, Surak is having a meeting with Maeve. He's woken her up and they're in Singapore now. And he's revealing a little bit of his back history and his motivation. He's monologuing a bit. We get a bit of a flashback, presumably of him when he was a kid. He has lived through some sort of disaster. And I think this is where it's going to feed into my theory about this all being a simulation within a simulation. Surak has apparently spent his life trying to figure out a way to guide humanity because of some travesty or tragic accident that happened when he was a kid. It looks like either a nuclear explosion went off or, I don't know, a pandemic or something like that. There were emergency services in the scene, and it showed radiation, so it was probably some sort of nuclear holocaust and fallout from a nuclear war or nuclear explosion, which would also explain the desolated scenes we saw of the cradle in the finale of season 2, because we did flash back to seeing a really desiccated desert, dried up version of the cradle. So maybe that's the reality that he's coming from, and it's the real future, which leads into my idea of this show being a simulation of a simulation, and we're in future world, which might not actually be future world, but past world or present world. And the future is actually a dead planet. There's a lot of potential options here. Presumably, though, when he was a kid, he lived through this sort of end of the world or end of civilization event, or presumably he's done the Insight and Rehobola as a way of guiding humanity towards a controlled, not in a dictatorial sense, but in a controlled direction to prevent catastrophes like that. Of course, this all becomes subjective. At what point is freedom? Like, if somebody is controlling your every move and controlling your opportunities for advancement in life and society, how free are you really? Apparently, Delos's map of humanity is actually better and more thorough and has a better understanding of humanity than Rehobola's, though. So that's part of why he wants the technology. Now, after that conversation, he is teaming up with Maeve, and ultimately he takes her back to Bernard's old house, where he finds the setup that Dolores has used to make new hosts and the ingredients for that. And so he's pointed out to Maeve, hey, she took 5 pearls from the park, and she's made 5 hosts. What's implied is we need to know who those hosts are, who she brought with her. And that was really the big question coming out of season 2 also, right? Because we saw her with the 5 pearls. Meanwhile, back with Stubbs and Bernard, they are trying to plan intercepting Dolores, right? Dolores is on a mission to capture Liam Dempsey, and Bernard and Stubbs are trying to interfere with that kidnapping plan. They show up at a party where all of this is supposed to happen, and Stubbs and Dolores get into a fight. They're pretty equally matched. Ultimately, though, Dolores uses Stubbs' weight against him and sends him over the edge of a railing. Presumably, he's dead. He might not be, but as always in shows like this, if you don't see the body, it's not real. It didn't happen, right? So it's all just smoke and mirrors until we see a body. And even then, just saying. While Dolores and Stubbs are fighting, Bernard goes after Liam Dempsey. He's chasing after her. He's trying to get to him before he gets replaced and stop Dolores' master plan. That's what this is all about. What he doesn't realize is that he thinks Dempsey has been replaced already with a host, but he doesn't realize that Dolores needs him around for some reason still, so he hasn't been replaced. So Dolores, as we know, has replaced Dempsey's thug, Connell I think his name is, instead, to keep close to him. While Dolores is fighting Stubbs, Caleb and Bernard are chasing Liam Dempsey. They're trying to get to him first. Bernard wants to save him from becoming a host, and Caleb unknowingly wants to catch him so that Dolores can turn him into a host. They eventually catch up with him. Dempsey's losing it. He's losing his shit. He doesn't know what's going on. Why is everybody trying to kill me? Why is everybody chasing me? He just doesn't get it, right? McConnell, Dempsey's thug, shows up, and at first Dempsey is like, oh, thank God you're here. And then McConnell tells him to run for it or whatever, and tells Caleb to go after Dempsey. And that leaves McConnell and Bernard to have a moment together. So this is where the episode really all comes together. This episode is really about 3 major sort of mini arcs within the episode. There's an arc with Dolores and Caleb, there's an arc with Charlotte and William, and then there's an arc with Maeve, and they're all kind of interwoven. We'll put this scene with Bernard and McConnell on hold for a second, and let's go back to Maeve. Maeve has been following the directions of Surak the whole time, so I guess her arc is really about Surak and herself. So she's followed the leads that Surak provided to track down Dolores and her operations at some sort of Yakuza warehouse, and she goes in there trying to figure out what's going on and confront and stop Dolores. She thinks she's going to find Dolores there, and she doesn't realize Dolores is too busy kidnapping someone somewhere else at a party. She goes in, and she finds in the storage facility that this Yakuza warehouse is full of ingredients for building hosts. And the guy that she encounters in charge of the warehouse is Satoshi. I think that's his name. I can't remember. I'll have to look that up, double check. Off the top of my head, I'm probably saying his name wrong. but he was her friend in Shogun World, if you recall, in season 2. She left him behind. So they get into a fight. Meanwhile, checking in with our third story arc, we now have Charlotte pulling William out of isolation and trying to integrate him into the world. So Charlotte and William clash. William is still having visions of his dead daughter, and it's haunting him. And Charlotte reveals that she's been listening in the entire time on the security footage. So she knows he's been having visions of his daughter. And so as soon as he walks out and loses it, she uses that as justification to have him committed for mental instability. He's crazy, right? Because we know he's not crazy. He's dealing with an extremely unusual circumstance, being everything he's been through. But to anybody else, he's going to appear crazy. So she uses this as proof, as evidence to lock him up and get him institutionalized. And he's flipping out, how could you do this to me, blah, 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 the standard stuff. And she reveals that she's his oldest friend or something like that. This isn't true unless she's not Charlotte. We knew she wasn't Charlotte. We were wondering who all those pearls were, right? We were wondering who's inside McConnell. We were wondering who's inside Charlotte. And we were wondering who's inside Satoshi now. So it's revealed when she says it in that moment that she's Dolores. So who's in Dolores? Or the correct thought was, wait, it's a copy. And that's what gets revealed across all of the scenes simultaneously. While Maeve is fighting Satoshi, she also pieces together that she's fighting Dolores as well from the dialogue they're exchanging, and that Dolores didn't take any of the hosts out of the park at all. She just made copies of her own pearl. Well, except for Bernard. When we cut back to Bernard and McConnell, it's the same thing. McConnell reveals that I'm your only friend, Bernard. Don't you recognize me? So then Bernard obviously also realizes that Dolores has copied a pearl and put the pearl inside McConnell also. So that's really how the episode ends. It ends in Charlotte's scene with William. Because he's losing it and he's being institutionalized, she can now declare him unfit and now can take absolute control of the company of Delos without having to worry about the artificial proxy that she had to appease most of the time in the previous few episodes. So that is how the episode ends. Brilliant. I don't know if we really have any big cliffhangers waiting to be revealed. I'll have to give that some thought, but that is how episode 4 wraps up, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you did too. So this is a good place to wrap up the video as well. So on that note, let's say goodbye. See you guys in the next video. Don't forget to let me know what you thought of the episode and this video in the comments below. So if you're new to the channel, don't forget to click like and subscribe, and click the bell for notifications so you're notified when a new video is uploaded. As always, thanks for watching, everybody. I will see everyone soon. Take care of yourselves. We are in a pandemic, so stay home, wash your hands, do all the things, okay? Just take care of yourselves so we can all get through this.